All right, today we want to talk about something that's very simple. Matter of fact, it's so simple that it causes people to get things wrong, and that seems kind of dumb. But we'll talk about why that is in a couple of minutes. But what we want to talk about today is something called a reciprocal. Okay, and a reciprocal is something that we use when we're dividing fractions, which, by the way, is the only thing we haven't talked about yet. So if you don't know about reciprocals, you won't be able to divide fractions. So, first of all, let me give you the definition of a reciprocal. A reciprocal is the number you multiply a given number times in order to get an answer of 1. By the way, when you stop and you think about that, first of all, people say, oh, that's easy. All you do is multiply by 1. But a number times 1 does not equal 1. What does a number times 1 equal? It equals itself. So then when you think about that, you say, wait, how can I multiply a number and get an answer of 1? Because when I multiply, doesn't the answer get larger? It does. And you say, well then, how, if I multiply a number times 1, it's not going to get less than the number. Well, it could. And you go, I don't understand. If I had like 8, and I go through my times table, 8 times 1 is 8, is already too big. And if you go down to 8 times 0, it's 0, it's too small. So you might say you can't get a reciprocal. And when you think about a whole number, it is kind of complicated how to get the reciprocal. All right? But if you think about a fraction, it's not. Because you see, if I had like 2/3 the fraction, and I said, what would you multiply 2/3 times to get an answer of 1? Okay, well, think about that for a minute. When you multiply fractions, numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator, how could you come up with an answer of 1? Well, think about the shortcut. Simplify before you multiply. Any top times any bottom, with any bottom. So if I wanted this to change to 1, I'd want this 2 to cancel out with this. So what would have to go down here? A 2. Because then 2 would go once and 2 would go once. And I want this 3 to cancel out with what's up there. So what would have to be up there so they would cancel each other out? A 3. Because 3 would go once and 3 would go once. And 1 times 1 would be 1, and 1 times 1 would be 1, and 1 divided by 1 is 1. So if I wanted the reciprocal of 2/3, it would be 3/2. And that's pretty easy to find for a fraction. And you go, wait, how did you know that? Can anyone think about for a minute what it would take to get the reciprocal? Well, I turn the problem around. I make the numerator the denominator, and I make the denominator the numerator. Okay, by the way, it's not accidental that you turn the problem around, and it's called a reciprocal. Because the word reciprocal comes from the word reciprocate. And what it means to reciprocate is it means to turn it around. All right? When you reciprocate a favor, that means if someone does a favor for you, you turn around and do a favor for them. So the word reciprocate basically means to turn around. Or another way to think about it is flip it. And you say, okay, Mr. Du, now I got how to change a fraction to its reciprocal. But we still don't know how to change a whole number to reciprocal. You're right. So how could I change a whole number to reciprocal? Make it a fraction. How can I make 8 into a fraction? 8/1. Now, if I make 8/1, then what's its reciprocal? Flip it around. 1/8. And by the way, if you multiply 8/1 times 1/8, sure enough, 8 goes one time, 8 goes one time, and sure enough, I get an answer of 1. So the reciprocal of the whole number 8 is 1/8. And you say, well, what about a mixed numeral? Could you get the reciprocal of a mixed numeral? And the answer is most definitely yes. Okay, but you can't get the reciprocal of a mixed numeral until you make it into a fraction. And what kind of fraction does a mixed numeral become? An improper fraction. So the first thing I have to do here is I have to make 1 2/3 into an improper fraction. Mabo. Dun, 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 dun. No, mabo. Multiply 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5 over 3. So the fraction is 5/3. Now, once I make the mixed numeral into an improper fraction, the reciprocal is easy to get. Because all you have to do to get the reciprocal is turn it around, flip it. Make the numerator the denominator, and make the denominator the numerator. And again, the reciprocal of 5/3 is 3/5. So the reciprocal of 1 2/3 is 3/5. So again, it's extremely easy to find the reciprocal of a number if you can write the number as a fraction. Because if you write the number as a fraction, its reciprocal just means turn it around, flip it. Make the top the bottom and the bottom the top. And if you have a whole number or a mixed numeral, before you can get the reciprocal, you have to make it into an improper fraction. And then you can get its reciprocal. And I told you in the very beginning that the problem with reciprocals is it's so easy, people want to do it all the time. They adding fractions, they get an improper fraction as an answer, and they go, no problem, I'll change the reciprocal. You can't. Or people want to multiply and say, oh, well, look, if I change it to a reciprocal, I can simplify. You can't. Because the only time you can use reciprocals is in division. And the only number you ever turn to reciprocal is the one you divide by. By the way, that's such an important statement, I'm going to say it again. The only time you can use reciprocals is in division. And the only number you ever change to reciprocal is the one you divide by. And you say, but I don't understand, why do we change to reciprocals in division? I said, that's for the next class when we talk about dividing fractions. But for now, all you need to do for tonight's homework is know how to get the reciprocal. And it is so simple. But just remember, for a third time, the only time you're ever going to use reciprocals is in division, and the only number you're ever going to change to reciprocal is the one you divide by. But again, reciprocate means to turn around. Reciprocal means to turn the fraction around, the top to the bottom, the bottom to the top. So this is what you need to know for the homework tonight, and that ought to be very easy.